Flipping and wholesaling houses in New York show. I am Michael Pinter, where I teach you how to start flipping and wholesaling houses in New York, or if you're already doing it, how to grow your business. Question is, can closing costs be included in a loan? So I was in the mortgage business for 17 years, so I got asked that question maybe 100,000 times. And the answer really is, it depends. It depends on what the loan is. So if it's a purchase loan, so you're buying a property, technically, the only way to really include the closing costs in the loan where you're not, well, let me just explain how it works, right? Let's take general round numbers. I'm buying a house for $400,000 and I'm taking a loan of $300,000. I'm bringing $100,000 for the down payment. And there's closing costs of $10,000, which is probably light and less than what it would be if you're taking a loan in New York. But let's say it's $10,000. So in theory, can you include the closing costs in the loan? You probably could borrow $310,000. You're still going to have $10,000 in costs, and then maybe you only need to bring $100,000 to the closing, possibly. But what really happens is you have a bigger loan for that amount, and you might be up against certain barriers, right? So if you're going above 80% of a purchase price, you don't want to increase the loan for closing costs because then you're going to trigger something called mortgage insurance, and that is an additional monthly payment that you don't want. Also, your lender might only be willing to lend you up to a certain amount for whatever reason. Maybe they're only giving you 80% or 90%, whatever it is, and then you can't increase the loan if you're going above that because then you won't get, then the loan approval won't be in effect. So there is something called a seller's concession when you buy a property, which can work under certain circumstances. So I get asked for seller's concessions all the time when I sell a property. A seller says, hey, I need a 5% seller's concession. So let's say I'm selling a property, let me get my calculator, for $500,000, and this guy wants a 5% seller's concession. So basically he wants to increase the sales price by $25,000. I should have been able to do that math. Increase the sales price by $25,000 and then do a concession. And that is really so that his sales price can be based off of $525,000. So let's say he's borrowing 90%, let's say he's borrowing 80%. And then he'll have a $420,000 loan instead of a $400,000 loan. Right? He's going to borrow 80% of that additional seller's concession. Right? So again, the lender says we'll lend you 80% of the purchase price. So there's a few things. First of all, the appraised value has to be higher and come in for $525,000. If the appraised value comes in for $500,000, then he's going to get screwed up. Now, here's what happens. This has to happen, or should happen. Unfortunately, it happens later a lot at the contract period of the discussion. So this will happen. He'll say, "Listen, I want to buy. I want to. Let's say I'm asking $500,000. I'll give you $500,000, but I want a sales concession." So I'll say, "Okay, I don't. So I don't really care about a sales concession. It doesn't really affect me much. There's a small amount of transfer tax I'm going to pay on the concession, but it's de minimis. So I'll say, okay, $525,000 with a $25,000 sales concession. What happens is that the appraiser really gets the contract, and they know the price. The price is $525. They'll probably come in for the price, assuming it's not too high. Right? If we're at the tip of the market and there are no comps, then it won't work. But if the appraisal can come in for $525, I don't mind selling it for $525 and conceding the $25,000. And basically, he can borrow 80% of that, so he can get $20,000 towards his closing costs. That's fine. By the way, $20,000 also with a loan, very easy to come up with that amount of closing costs. By the way, the problem comes up once in a while when somebody screws up and gets a concession for too much. That concession can only be for closing costs. So smart mortgage people will say, well, I'll charge you another point, which is 1% of the loan to make it up, and then we'll refund it or something like that. But that is a problem. So that's the only way to really get closing costs included in a loan that you're buying, and those are the things you have to worry about. Right? You have to be concerned because, like I said, appraised value has to work. Your closing costs better be as much as you're conceding, and if you're going to just try and just bump up the loan amount, you have to be able to afford it. You have to still qualify. So those things to worry about. Now, on a refinance, very often the closing costs are included in a loan, right? So what a refinance is I have a loan, and I'm taking another loan to pay off that loan. So very, very often the closing costs are included in the loan. So it's very rare that on a refinance, and there are really two types of refinances. There's a rate to term refi, which means you're not getting any money out, and then there's a cash out refi where you're actually taking cash out. But on either of those refinances, it's very rare someone's going to have to bring money to the table. Usually that's going to be included in the loan. So if it's a cash out refinance and you have a $200,000 loan, now you're taking a $300,000 loan with $100,000 in cash out. If there's $10,000 in closing costs, you'll just get $90,000 instead of $100,000. But on a rate term refi, as a loan officer, you're trying to figure out exactly how much it should be. So maybe I'll add on $10,000 for closing costs, and then it gets tricky because you get approved for a certain loan to value in LTV. Um, let's say you're approved for 80% because it's a rate term refi, you're not getting any cash out. And I guess that you're going to have $10,000 in closing costs, and then you only have $6,000 in closing costs because of some crazy thing. Maybe taxes were prepaid. I don't know what it is, but or your payoff comes in less than expected, and then you're getting $4,000 in cash out. The lender might say, "Hey, now this is a cash out refi, and I'm only giving you 75%." So it's a tricky, tight wire to walk. Now, as it relates to real estate investing, in general, when you're taking a hard money loan to buy a property that you want to flip, um, the closing costs are never really included in the loan because they're usually a much lower percentage. The typical hard money lender will give you, let's say, 90% of your purchase price if you're experienced. If you're not experienced, maybe it's 80, maybe it's 70%, but the closing costs are coming out of your pocket for sure. So there's no way to include it in the loan. Um, but if sometimes what I've done is I've taken a hard money loan and then I've refinanced on a traditional loan and then I'm going to include the closing costs on a loan. But you got to understand all these parameters that you're coming up against because the maximum LTV, the maximum loan to value, which is what loan to value is um, the loan amount in comparison to either the appraised value or the purchase price, whatever is lower. So, for example, even if I'm buying a property for $400,000 that appraises for $500,000, the lender's like, I don't care. I'm only giving you a certain percentage of your purchase price. Um, but if it's the other way, so if I'm buying a property for $500,000, but the appraised value comes in for $400,000, then the lender again is going to say, I'm only giving you a loan based on $400,000. And let's say I'm willing to give you 80%, it's going to be based on the lower of the appraised value or the purchase price. Now, this entire 7 minutes that I've been talking has all been about mortgages. So I want to talk a little bit about how this relates to what you do. So you must figure in if you're going to buy a property to flip, right? It means you're going to close on it, do renovation to it, and then sell it. You've always got to figure in a significant amount for closing costs on the buy as cash you need, right? The general formula that I use when you figure out how much cash you're going to need to buy a property is, whatever percentage the lender's not going to lend you. So I'd call lenders and I'd say, how much are you going to lend me? It's my first deal or it's my 20th deal. And some of them will say, I'll give you 90% of the purchase price plus 100% of the construction costs, or I'll give you 80% of something. So whatever that is. So that 20% if you're new or 10% if you're experienced, that's part of what you're going to need cash into the deal. You're going to need closing costs, which is what we're talking about. I figure at least $10,000 on most deals. Bigger deals are going to be more. Actually, if you're taking a loan like that and you're going to have mortgage tax, it's probably going to be more like $15,000. You have lender fees and mortgage tax, at least $15,000. And then you need some cash to get the contractor started. So the lender is going to give you 100% of the construction cost, the renovation cost, but they're only going to give that to you in arrears. They're only going to pay you after the work is done. You're going to have to give them a scope of work and say, just as an example, I'm doing the kitchen, I'm doing a bathroom, and I'm doing the roof. I'm making it very simple. It's usually more complicated than that. So they'll say, okay, they're going to say and you're going to say it's going to cost me $60,000. They can say, okay, after you finish the kitchen, we'll give you 20 grand. After you finish the bathroom, we'll give you 10 grand. After you finish the roof, we'll give you 20 grand. Whatever it is. I don't think that added up. But the point is, they'll give you the money after. They're going to do an inspection or they're going to want you to take pictures. They're going to want to see that the work is done, and then they're going to pay you. So you're going to need some money to get a contractor started. He's going to need money for materials. Most contractors want something to get started. Ideally, you only want to pay the contractor after, just like the lenders are paying you. When you start, it's almost impossible. Most contractors are not going to work for you if you tell them, hey, I'll pay you in 2 weeks when you finish this level of scope. Most won't. And I don't do that. Always give them something to start. I try to keep it low. I try to create timelines. Sometimes if I'm getting a hard money loan, I'll keep those timelines specifically the same as the scope of work draw requests. So when they give you money, it's called the draw request. So I'll say, when you finish the kitchen, I'm going to give you more money because I know that's when I'm getting money from the lender. That is how it works. So you need to figure in closing costs on the loan, and they're significant in New York, right? Like I said, if you're taking a loan, it's hard to manage just getting less than around $15,000 in closing costs, and it could be much more depending on how many points you're going to pay to your lender also. So I hope this was helpful. If you're interested in the various ways I can help you, go to howtoflipnewyork.com. If you are interested in my course that teaches how to do this, go to howtoflipnewyorkcourse.com. If you're interested in coaching, one-on-one coaching, go to coaching.howtoflipnewyork.com. If you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe. If you are watching on any plan, any channel, please click thumbs up. The likes really help me. And please keep the comments coming. I go live 5 times a week. Your comments give me things to talk about. I don't always know what the hell I'm going to talk about. Sometimes I draw a blank. And if it's a simple comment, I'll just reply with an answer. If it's something I recently covered or covered in depth, I'll send you links to the videos. And if it's a new topic, I will do a video on it. Thank you very, very much for watching.